Welcome back to another Pokemon TCG tabletop video. In this video, I'm going to be playing a league challenge at Kansan Games. Going to be running Gardevoir, of course. It's what I brought to the European International Championships. This is the same list that I played there. We got the Unfair Stamp, which I'm fairly confident in. The main reason I switched over was that I really enjoyed the Secret Box with the Mawile Trap plan against Miraidon, but then I felt like people were kind of playing switch carts, so I wanted to ditch the Mawile plan, and then the Secret Box felt a little less useful. I also just really like Double Artisan, and so the Stadium versatility just wasn't really there, and then I started playing some games with the Unfair Stamp, and this card is just stupid broken. You just win some games for free sometimes because you play an Unfair Stamp and your opponent draws terribly, so going to be playing this deck at this challenge. It's a 6-round league challenge. I believe we got maybe 37 people or so there, something like that. And I definitely got some good games in here. So with that in mind, let's get to the gameplay. Round 1, we run into a Raging Bolt. A little bit of a throwback here. Haven't seen much Raging Bolt lately, but I know how to play this matchup. I went first, had a bit of a slow start. I used Heavy Ball to get Manaphy out onto the board, so at least I'm not getting donked. Right, next turn, I can use TM Evolution. It's not that big a deal. Of course, I would like to have some Ralts on my board, but I think we are very much so in the game still. It is pretty favorable matchup, in my opinion, so even with a lackluster start, we should still be in a decent spot. My opponent starts off well. They got that Earthen Vessel and the Sadas, so they're most likely going to be attacking with the Slitherwing here. When I see them Vessel for not a Fighting Energy, I assume they just have a Fighting Energy in hand already, so surely they'll be attacking here. They go ahead, activate a couple abilities, draw some cards, get some energies in play, get some Pokemon. All in all, a pretty solid turn from them. And then they just go ahead and KO our Screamtail. I top deck a Buddy Buddy Poffin, pretty nice for me. That allows me to Arven for another item card. I end up opting for Unfair Stamp here. I imagine there is an argument to not Unfair Stamp here, but it seems pretty good. I want to protect my Kirlias from potential Pokemon Catcher boss's orders. I'm debating wasting this TM Evolution, but I think it's actually possible that I TM Evo this turn, and then next turn I just whiff either the energies necessary to attack or the Guard X itself. And I actually might want that TM Evolution in my deck to just TM Evolution again next turn and set up 4 Kirlias or something, right? And that would enable, 4 Kirlias would enable me to Turo my Gardevoir EX throughout the course of the game. And then not leave myself vulnerable to 2 prize plays. So I end up deciding to leave the TM Evo in the deck, and we just go ahead and rip this Unfair Stamp. Now, our opponent does draw Professor Sadas off the Unfair Stamp from the Poke Year. Can't be too mad. Our opponent's deck is 100% cards that draw them more cards, right? Any energy card, they can Teal Dance, they can Greninja, they got Trekking Shoes. I guess Nest Balls and Ultra Balls are pretty bad for them, but Ultra Ball, Lumineon Sada, they got the Sada, just so many cards, Pokestops, right? Just really hard for them to actually draw a completely dead hand here. So they play the Sadas, they get some more Ogrepons in play, they get an energy onto their Bolt, and overall their board is just looking really developed. It's going to make it much easier for them later on to start KOing our Gardevoir EXs, which is really how we lose the matchup. We see a Tails on Pokemon Catcher. Very nice. Lets us keep our Kirlias in play. And hopefully we can string together an attack on our next turn. So I get a prize from the Slitherwing dying, and I end up opting to promote Monkey Dory. I think this might be a mistake. I think I might need to just promote Gardevoir or Kirlia here so that when I get this attack off, I actually have more damage in play. But I was also kind of open to the idea of TM Evoing here and not attacking. So I promoted the Monkey because you don't want to TM Evo with Kirlia. So I'm not entirely sure if it was correct to promote Kirlia and commit to the attack, or promote Monkey and kind of be a little more passive. I ended up promoting the Monkey, and then I get the attack, and so I wish I send up the Kirlia, but that might just be a case of I don't know, being biased. I think it's called confirmation bias, but anyways, in this spot, I have Iono here. I was actually debating not Ionoing here, and I think not Ionoing would have actually been pretty smart. So I Iono here, which is good, right? I draw more cards, and I set my opponent's hand size lower. But the problem is that I prized an Iono, and I only play 3. So now there's only 1 Iono in my deck, meaning that it's going to be really hard for me to Iono my opponent on following turns, right? And an Iono to 1 or an Iono to 2 is actually way more important than this Iono to 4. And so we'll see how that develops. But the bottom line is going to be from here, it's going to be really hard for me to reliably Iono my opponent. Now, that being said, we also had a bit of a failure. I think the main reason I Iono'd there was that I wanted to find Counter Catcher. That would have let me actually knock out a Teal Mask Ogerpon. But instead, I just have to swing into this Raging Bolt for 210 with the Monkey Dory ping. And so, yes, we do threaten to like kill this Raging Bolt on the next turn with another Monkey Dory ping, but Switch Cart would prevent that, and Bravery Charm would also prevent that. So we're kind of have to get a bit lucky here, hope our opponent doesn't find a Switch Cart, doesn't find a Bravery Charm. And then next turn, we can like do some multi-kills where we like Monkey Dory the Bolt and then maybe like Screamtail the Ninja or something like that. But my opponent actually draws like kind of insane here and ends up just killing our Gardevoir EX with a boss's orders, which puts me in a really rough spot because I kind of am forced to put down another Gardevoir EX here now, which leaves me vulnerable. My opponent's on 2 prizes, right? They could just go ahead and kill my Gardevoir EX again next turn. They've got, what, like 5 cards in hand maybe, and I have 1 Iono in my deck, right? So here, this is where playing that Iono is really bad, because now, if I could just like put down a Gardevoir EX, Iono, maybe like Monkey the Bolt, and then like kill the Ninja, right? We're feeling pretty good. Like 2 cards, surely my opponent's not going to kill my Gardex, but I end up whiffing the Iono here. Of course, there's only 1 in my deck, so I'm probably going to whiff. And now I have to leave my opponent with 5 cards, right? That's not good. So one last thing I can do, I do have an Iono prized, so I'm going to try to kill this Raging Bolt with Monkey Dory, hopefully draw the Iono off prized, and then we'll be completely bailed out. But a little bit of a spoiler, I do not draw the Iono off these 2 prizes. And so I'm put in an awkward spot where I now have to commit to basically just hoping my opponent can't one-shot this Gardex. Another consideration would be Turo. I remember I didn't have a Turo in my hand for this EX, but even if I did Turo this EX, I would put myself down to 1 Kirlia, and then my only Kirlia could get knocked out, at which point I would probably just lose the game. So maybe the Turo would have been terrible here. So I just go for Arven, Ultra Ball, and at this point, I'm just trying to set up my board as much as possible, trying to think what I want to do if my opponent whiffs, right? So let's say my opponent doesn't get the Gardevoir EX KO. What are they going to do, right? That's what I'm trying to think about in this moment. You know, I'm going to go down to 2 prizes here. So if they whiff the KO, they might just like put a 1 prizer in the active and pass, right? Like maybe they might Burst Roar, or they might, maybe they could kill my Drifloon. They could kill my Monkey, right? I'm just trying to think through all these combinations of like weird plays they can make if they whiff this like big Pokemon catcher kill Gardex play, right? And so I end up just deciding that the best way to protect myself from those kind of weird plays is to develop another Kirlia, get some more draw power. I might need a boss's orders to close out the game. I might need like Bravery Charm with Screamtail. I might need Turo to like pick up this Drifloon and like reset my energies. So I just get another Kirlia, draw some more cards, and then I wish my opponent the best of luck. And by the best of luck, I mean the worst of luck, because I'm definitely hoping that they whiff the KO and I win the game. But we'll see what happens here. They start off with Nest Ball for Fez, and already they've got about 8 cards in hand. I'm not feeling particularly good about the situation. I take a sip of my coffee. I ask my opponent how likely it is that I'm dead, and they say like it's like pretty likely that I'm dead. They said they're missing like 1 or 2 cards. And so taking a look at it now, looks like they're missing that Prime Catcher. They've got just about everything else. They're going to need probably an Energy Retrieval or a Vessel to get 2 Grass Energies into play in Teal Dance. Well, there's the Energy Retrieval there. They're going to need the Prime Catcher, of course. They're going to need, I think that's about it. Oh, and there's the Prime Catcher. Little photo finish for you there. And then we're going to get all the energies in play. Attach an extra 1 to the Bolt, play Prime Catcher, and that's going to be the game. So definitely a bad start from me. I think I could have played it a little bit better. I think I could have maybe not Iono'd on that 1 turn and then saved my Iono for the end of the game. Otherwise, I'm not entirely sure what I could have done. But I definitely left this game feeling like I was unlucky, but also that I could have played better. So let me know in the comments down below if you noticed any maybe plays I missed, or really any suggestions at all on that game. But so we're going to start this challenge 01, but I promise we get some more good games And we go on a little bit of a run here. So let's go ahead and get into that second round. In round 2, I run into my friend Charles, and he's a good guy, but he starts messing with me. He starts Pheasantipity. I'm pretty sure he's playing Klawf, but he starts telling me, he's like, nah, bro. Like, I'm not playing Klawf. I swear, I'm playing Dragapult. And I'm like, nah. I don't believe you. And so I end up getting the Klefki, thank God. Because if you take a look at his hand, he's definitely playing Klawf, and I'm definitely very happy to have this Klefki in my active. From what I remember, my hand is not particularly good here. I don't think I have really much of anything. So part of me getting this Klefki, even if he was playing Pult, like just because my hand is so bad, I felt like I needed to buy some time with this Klefki. And off to Charles's turn, he's a little stumped by this Klefki, not entirely sure what to do. Right? A lot of his best options are shut off. He can't poison me. He can't use Squawk. He can't use Oranguru. He can't use Latias. So if he wants to get the Fez out of the active, he has to switch card. He can't attack with Terapagos. So his only attacker is Klawf, but he can't poison himself. So this Klefki really just like shuts him down, at least for one turn. So he ends up grabbing Hisuian Heavy Ball and I think a Mochi because he prized Badoo. And so he really wants to get that Badoo out. He recognizes his best win condition against Gardevoir is to like spam Badoo in the early game, poison, KO my Ralts, hope I just can't really set up. And from there, he can establish some advantage. Of course, if I'm sitting on something like an Arven in hand, that would get me an item. And then, of course, I can't play it. So he's going to go for this Badoo. But I do think, given the fact that I have Klefki in the active, this Badoo might be a little slow. Of course, without the Brute Bonnet, he can't really take KOs. I think if I didn't have Klefki in play, or maybe like, if I didn't have Klefki in play, I think this is brilliant. And then he can just start running me over. But in this case, he's a little reliant on finding boss's orders. Now, he does have a research in hand, so he's going to go ahead, play the research, get a new set of cards. Maybe this set will have a boss's orders. I assume his deck's got 3 or 4 of them. And then he can start taking out the Ralts and building up an advantage because he's really got to get like a 2 or 3, 4 prize card lead, maybe even, because once I get into the Gardex, I get that unfair stamp off. I can start trapping Pokemon, right? I can like bring up the Brute Bonnet, attack it with Klefki. I can bring up the Latias, attack it with Flutter. Well, I'm actually not playing Flutter Mane, but anyways, we're just going to go back and forth here. He's going to Badoo me a couple times. I'm just going to start jousting, apply some pressure onto this Badoo, and he's just going to let me KO it with Joust. Now, at this point, I'd prized, I can't remember exactly what I prized, but I had useful prizes. I think I prized 2 Kirlias and an Iono, and so I felt like killing that Badoo was worth it. I could draw into some good cards and then be able to start developing my board. Another thing I could have done there was potentially, I had boss's orders in hand. So I was debating just using boss to bring up the Brute Bonnet and Joust and like buy myself some time. But I ended up just killing the Badoo. And at this point, I didn't draw the Kirlia or the Iono off prize, which is a little awkward for me. But it looks like I top decked the Arven. I wasn't sure if I top decked the Arven on this turn or the next. But we finally get going. We get the TM Evo off. And now Charles is under a lot of pressure. He can't keep sitting here with the Badoo. I'm going to start using Refinement, getting energies in my discard. Gardevoir EX is coming. I can get some Monkey Dories down to kill the Badoo. And now everything is going to start getting a little more fast-paced. Charles only got a couple cards in hand. He's going to Ultra Ball here. Not a lot of great cards to grab. All of them currently blocked by the Klefki, right? Like the Latias or the Sneasler, really everything. But he's got a boss's orders, it looks like. So he's going to be able to KO that Kirlia, stifle my setup a little bit. But at this point, I think I'm able to chain some stuff together. I've got the unfair stamp in my hand. I got it off Arven last turn. So I'm going to be able to stamp away that Luminion that Charles Ultra Balled for. We got some energies in the discard. Looks like we got 3 there. Here's our Gardex. Here's our Artisan. There comes down the Monkey Dory. And now everything's coming together. We've got the board put together. And from here, I feel very confident. It's, I believe, impossible for Charles to kill my Gardevoir EX. If I put it in the active, it's possible to be KO'd by like Black Belt / Kieran plus like a big play. But as long as I don't put my Gardevoir EX in the active, Charles is only going to be able to take 1 prize a turn. Now here, I'm like debating what my best course of action is. I know Charles's current hand is not particularly good. I think he's just got like a Lumineon and not much else. I don't think he has like multiple bosses orders in hand. And so I'm thinking of just like retreating my Klefki into Ralts, moving off the damage with Monkey Dory, teleportation bursting, just kind of playing it passive here, waiting one more turn. I can get more Ralts in play. And I think this play makes a lot of sense. I can also get like a second Monkey Dory established next turn. Yeah, so I kind of like this passive play as opposed to like going in with like Gardex or like Monkey Dory. I imagine I didn't have access to like a Screamtail there or a Drifloon, or else I probably would have done that. But also, like, if I attack with Drifloon, then I open myself up to like my Drifloon being KO'd by Badoo, which is kind of awkward. And so I just decided to play it slow. That's kind of the name of the game with Guardy, and it's pretty hard to feel bad about just doing nothing with this deck because the end game is so powerful. Now from here, I've got a couple different routes to victory. Of course, I'm on even prizes, so I'm going to be looking to go 2-2 from here. I was also able to get 10 damage on this Terapagos from the teleportation burst. So now a 3 energy Gardex plus a Monkey Dory ping is going to be enough to get through this Terapagos. I've also got this Drifloon with the Charm on my board, so I've got multiple ways to get through these not so bulky 2 prize Pokemon. I'm going to be looking to establish my second Dark Energy. That way I can go in with a Gardevoir EX that has no damage on it. But looks like I'm not going to get that second Dark, and I'm just going to decide to go ahead and knock him out with the Gardevoir EX. Now, it would require a Kieran or a Black Belt to KO this Gardevoir. It's only got 1 damage counter on it. I think I actually attached a Psychic Energy that turn. And I knew in this moment, I'm not sure entirely what was in my hand, but I knew that if Charles came in with a Kieran or a Black Belt, that means he can't play an Iono, and my hand was pretty busted. I mean, all it really has to have is an out to Gardevoir EX, and then I can just recover my Gardevoir EX and knock out the Terapagos with Drifloon. So what is Charles supposed to do here? I mean, he's trying to figure it out. He's got that Iron Bundle down. That's going to let him KO something that isn't this Gardevoir EX. Maybe this turn he can use Bundle, KO something I send up. Potentially he could KO it with Badoo. Maybe that would give me a hard time. And then on the next turn he could maybe follow up with a KO onto Gardevoir EX if possible. Of course, an Iono seems to be a crucial part of this plan. I've got, I don't know how many cards there, but definitely too many. 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, maybe 6 or 7 there. I'm not entirely sure. He's going to go ahead and get the Sneasler down. Just expanding his board, and there's that Iono. Now, if he attacks with the Klawf here, that also seems pretty solid. That would force me to have... I mean, Screamtail doesn't even really win me the game. I would need like Screamtail plus another Monkey and a Dark Energy. How else could I win the game here? A Boss's Orders would win me the game. I'm actually kind of surprised I just sacrificed that Monkey Dory. I honestly probably should have sent up like the Ralts, and then that way I would still have access to like the double Monkey Screamtail win condition, but now I don't. So I feel like the only way I can really win here is with a boss or some kind of combo play. I don't really know. It does look like Charles is also on 3 prize cards still, so I can probably just afford to like take a 1 prize here. Even if he's only on 2 there, he can't afford to, or he can't boss and KO my Gardex, right? He would need like a Black Belt or a Kieran. It's got 300. His max is 290, and so I think I'm content to just take a slow turn here. Oh yeah, from what I remember, I think I actually just opt to like kill this Klawf with Screamtail plus the poison damage. And then I know that no matter what happens next turn, I've got the Drifloon ready to go. This just limits his draw ability, right? We don't give him Fez. We also, yeah, I don't know. We don't give him Fez. I think at this point I had many winning options and I go down to 1 prize. And I think Charles here, yeah, pretty much realizes that he can't win, and I'm just going to win on the following turn. So I think we got a little bit bailed out on this one. We were able to survive the early turns long enough to find the Arven, and then from there we just take over. This matchup's really good, and we'll be 1-1 heading into round. In round 3, we run into a Archaludon, which I was pretty happy about. I think this is honestly probably Gardevoir's best matchup. The only scary thing is Jamming Tower blocking our TM Evo, of course, makes it a little bit difficult to set up sometimes, but you know, we've got some artisans. We can also just evolve into Curlia manually, so we're feeling pretty good here. My opponent's off to a solid start. They're going to be able to use Squawkabilly. They've got a bunch of Duras down. The Radiant Greninja isn't prized, which is a frequent pitfall of this Archaludon deck. I find if you prize that Radiant Greninja, life gets very difficult. And of course, he throws the Jamming Tower in our face, so no TM evolution for us. Unless, of course, we've got an Artisan lurking in our hand, and then he just passes over the turn to us. On my turn, my hand is pretty weak here. I don't really have any supporters or really much of anything, but I've got a Boss's Orders and I've got an Energy. So I'm kind of just thinking here, like, do I retreat my Fez? Do I Boss stall the Greninja? Is that worth doing? And I end up deciding that it is worth my Boss's Orders to stall out this Greninja and retreat. I kind of felt like maybe bossing wasn't worth it because I felt like the main way I was going to start drawing out of this was using Fezandipity. And by bossing up this Greninja, I actually make it less likely that I get attacked. And so, like, if I don't get attacked, I'm probably draw passing again on the next turn. So I could actually have heard an argument for not using Boss's Orders and kind of just like hoping I get KO'd. I don't have a Curlia in hand. I don't have really much of anything. I have a Night Stretcher. I know that. So even if my opponent like uses Iron Bundle here, KOs my Fezandipity, I can use Night Stretcher, get back the Fez, draw 3, and hopefully go from there. And we've got this Ralts, it can become a Curlia, so we're definitely not giving up here. We're feeling bad, obviously. I mean, the setup is not good, and we feel even worse when my opponent uses Prime Catcher to bring up the Fezandipity. That makes me feel even worse about my use of Boss's Orders, but I think overall it was okay. Here he's going to set up that Archaludon, and it's going to get some more energies into play, and I think that's going to be about it. This Fezandipity is going to go down here. Now, the one thing we do have going for us is that my opponent doesn't have a second Archaludon set up right now, and he doesn't have Fezandipity on the board, so like as I start to attack later on in the game, my opponent's board is like a little bit underdeveloped, and we'll kind of see that come into effect later on as I top deck Unfair Stamp. I got the Night Stretcher for the Fez here, so we're kind of right back in the game. We're going to be drawing 8 cards here. Now, when I play this stamp, I'm thinking my plan here most likely is to retreat this Ralts, evolve it into a Curlia, pass with like whatever crappy Pokemon in the active, and then on the next turn I can evolve into Gardex and start playing the game. But I actually get a little lucky here, and I even get the Artisan, which lets me just use this TM Evo, and now we're loving life here. We're going to set up double Curlia. I end up benching this Drifloon, mostly just to play around an Iron Bundle. The Artisan's in play, so my opponent can easily go ahead, search out that Iron Bundle. I wouldn't want to have to promote a Curlia or my Fezandipity. Both seem like terrible options, so we kind of just got this Drifloon here as some protection, and, you know, it's not a terrible attacker later on in the game. Some other things to think about here. We are still lacking some Monkey Dories. We're going to want to be setting those up so we can start spreading some damage onto the board. A common theme of this Archaludon matchup is that you really don't want to be swinging into Archaludons for not a knockout, right? If you ever Miracle Force into an Archaludon for 190, the little Duraludon's attack Raging Hammer does 270, and then with the use of Black Belt or Black Belt's Training, whatever the supporter card is called, it makes him do 40 more damage. And so that's a perfect KO onto Gardevoir EX. And so what we're really going to be looking to do here as we stabilize our board is to start using, honestly, 4 Monkey Dory pings, right? So if we use 2 monkeys in one turn, that's 60. And then on the next turn, 60 more is 120. And then we're able to kill Duraludons without activating that Raging Hammer threat. So we're going to need to get some monkeys going. And we're pretty happy to see my opponent has somewhat of a lackluster turn, doesn't develop too much, no Fezandipity on the board, no second Duraludon, makes me feel pretty good. And now we're going to get to start playing the game. So we're a little bit further behind than we would like to be. We're down 6-3, and we have Fezandipity on the board, which is a massive liability, but we can definitely still win this game if our opponent can't find Boss's Orders on specific turns, right? In the end game, right, we always have the option to Iono our opponent to 1 and start attacking with Gardevoir EX. Another part of that strategy is that we're going to be looking to set up 2 Gardevoir EXs, again, to play around that Iron Bundle. The Artisan's in play, right? So that's always going to be kind of a free option for my opponent. We're also going to be looking to Turo this Fezandipity ASAP before it can get KO'd. Now this turn, I wanted to find a counter catcher, either to take out the little Duraludon on the bench, or maybe even to just KO that Squawkabilly here. I just really don't want to be punching into this Archaludon for 190. And so here now I've whiffed the counter catcher and I have to reevaluate what are my backup plans. And I think attacking with Drifloon seems okay. I really wanted to start like walling with the Guard X now. Maybe my Guard X could soak up a hit and I could Turo, but I just don't feel comfortable swinging into this Dura for 190. My opponent could have a black belt in his hand or a Luminion for black belt. And so I end up just deciding to retreat here into the Drifloon, and we're just going to poke in for 120. A little bit of a weak play, but you can kind of see my board is coming together. The double EX is going to come online pretty soon. If this Drifloon dies, we can get that double Monkey Dory going, which is going to be a huge asset. And this 120 damage sets up this Dura to die to Gardevoir EX in the future, which is going to be our optimal attacker in this matchup. You typically don't actually want to be blowing up Duraludons with Drifloon, right? That's going to give your opponent access to Pheasantipede. Jamming Tower can come down and KO the Drifloon. And you just find yourself a little overextended in those situations. Especially like if you have to play Arven for the Bravery Charm, like you really want to be Ionoing. So anyways, here my opponent does find Boss's Orders, which is going to let him take out this Pheasantipede and go down to 1 prize. Of course, we're on 6, but we're feeling unfazed in this moment. This is where Gardevoir shines, right? We have plenty of resources to come back here. Of course, Iono is going to be at the top of the list. I think our play this turn is going to just be to go, like I've been kind of mentioning, we're going to go double Gardevoir EX to play around that Iron Bundle. I'm becoming a little skeptical at this point that my opponent actually plays Iron Bundle because, I mean, Artisan's been in play for a while and he just hasn't benched it. So I'm kind of thinking maybe he just doesn't play Bundle, but I'm still going to do my best to play around it if I can. We're going to try to get that double EX, this Ultra Ball. Oh, looks like I'm getting Curlia. I'm sure I have another out to Gardevoir EX in my hand if I'm getting Curlia. I'm going to be able to get down another Monkey Dory and a Dark. Oh, look, I flashed my opponent that Iono. Looks like I was digging pretty hard for that Iono, and I almost missed. I'm sure if I didn't find Iono there, it would have been a disaster. My opponent's got, actually, you know what? What's he got there? Only like 3 cards? Maybe it would have been okay. Some tough discards off this Ultra Ball, but I think at this point, if my opponent ever kills anything, I lose, so I don't really need a Super Rod. It does lock me out of the potential of Triple Monkey, unless I use like a Turo, so that's something that's probably notable. And then here we go. Here's really the board we're building to the whole game in this matchup. No matter how far behind you are on prizes, once you get here, you Iono your opponent to 1, the game is in your hands. If my opponent just like smacks into my Gardevoir, I've got plenty of Turos, I'm drawing plenty of cards. My opponent's probably not going to be disrupting me, so I've got maybe 9 or 10 cards in my hand, and I'm going to get to keep that for the rest of the game. And this is where I really take over, especially in this position. My opponent actually doesn't even have an Archaludon on the board, so it's going to be really hard for him to do anything here. He's probably going to need to research, and if he's researching, well, then he's not playing Boss's Orders. He's just going to smack in, and then we can make some cool plays from there. So he ends up drawing nothing, so he just retreats off into that Radiant Greninja. I mean, it is hard to have good cards when you only get to draw 2. And so here I really get to take over. What I'm actually going to go for here is a pretty sick play. I'm going to go ahead. I've put 60 on one of the Duraludons on the bench, 30 on the other. So I'm going to go ahead and use some Monkey Pings, get that Dura up there. And then I'm actually going to Turo up this Monkey, put it back down with another Dark Energy. That's going to allow me to triple Monkey, KO that one Dura, and then I'm going to go ahead, counter catcher up that other Dura, and wipe all the Duraludons from my opponent's board. So watching this game in the early turns, it might have looked completely doomed, but you can see Gardevoir, once you stabilize, you can really deny your opponent so much. You're Ionoing them to 1, you're forcing them to draw into several card combos. We weren't even factoring in like counter catchers, we weren't stalling anything, and my opponent ends up having research here, but now it's too late. I'm just going to be killing that Squawkabilly on the next turn. And I think my opponent plays it out here to the end. We're going to see him draw a couple more cards. Maybe establish a Duraludon. Oh no, not even a Duraludon. And then I'm just going to Arven, Countercatcher, kill that Squawkabilly. So this is probably my favorite game in the video, and definitely an example of why it's almost impossible to give up when you're playing this Gardevoir deck. So at this point, we are 2-1 in the Elite Challenge. We're starting our comeback, just like we've done our comebacks with Gardevoir throughout this tournament, and really always, Gardevoir is always kind of a comeback deck. So in this 4th round, we're up against Lugia. We actually opened Klefki going 2nd, which is kind of nasty, blocking my opponent from using Squawkabilly or Luminion. But my hand is a little weird here. So I Ultra Ball for this Ralts, and in my hand, I have another Ralts, 2 Curlias, and an Iono. And so I decide, my opponent had a weak turn 1. And I have 2 Curlias in hand, and so I don't think it's worth it here to try an Iono into like TM Evo. Just seems a little risky. I could Iono into just like a terrible hand, and so I just decide to keep my double Curlia Iono hand and pass it off to my opponent Hugh. Now Hugh kicks it off with a Research, gets 3 chops in the discard, and gets that Lugia V down. Now something super notable here was he actually had Legacy Energy in his hand before the Research, and so he's never going to have the option of Iron Hands this game. And another thing that I should mention, which I didn't know at the time, is that Hugh doesn't play Drapion. You might have seen that Radiant Charizard in his hand, so he's checking for those Goldengos instead with the Radiant Charizard. I guess maybe Duraludon as well, but of course Duraludon blocks weakness, but so I'm not going to be getting amped this game, which is really nice, just kind of relieves a bit of pressure from me. And the only way my Gardevoirs are going to be one-shot are these Mincinos and potentially Weirdeer, which are just slightly worse options than Drapion. I kick off my turn, I do the double Curlia Iono, and I end up just firing off another TM Evolution. Now, I debate going straight into Gardevoir EX here, but I figure the odds my opponent has Lugia, Cinccino, Boss to like just wipe my Gardevoir off the board are like not negligible. And I'm pretty sure I also had an out to Gardevoir EX in my hand, whether I think I just actually have a Gardevoir EX in my hand at this point, or potentially an Ultra Ball, but I wasn't particularly worried about whiffing Gardevoir EX on the next turn. Now my opponent goes for the Water Pond, which kind of makes me a little confused at first. I'm like, wait, the Legacy's attached, and then he's like, oh wait, yep, there's no Legacy. This Water Pond is useless, so he just decides to get another Lugia. His attacking options are going to be a little awkward this game, right? So Lugia V-Star might actually be his best attacker. No Iron Hands, no Water Pond available. You see that Iron Hands in his hand, can't use that. But he is going to get out double chops here, and he's going to be taking the first prize of the game, so can't be too bad for my opponent. Otherwise, he's probably going to get some extra energies in play here. He can maybe attack with the Lugia, or the Cinccino. I kind of like attacking with the Cinccino here. It's got the Legacy energy. Really just an annoying Pokemon for me to deal with. I kind of have to kill it. I can't really leave Cinccino on the board and let it threaten one-shots on my Gardevoir EXs. And so, like, what do I really do, right? Like, I guess I could kill it with Drifloon, don't take a prize. That sounds pretty bad, right? So one other thing I can do is, like, kill it with Cresselia. And then that gets around the Legacy energy, which is kind of cool. So it might have been a smart idea for my opponent to put a Mist energy onto this Cinccino. That way it would actually block Cresselia's attack. I'm not sure if that's really worth the investment. At this point, like, if he wants to take a 2-prize attack, he's going to have to kill Gardexes, and that takes a lot of energies with no Drapion. So I kind of like just not committing too many energies onto this Cinccino. And then at this point, I've got 6 Psychic Energies in the discard, and I've got Cresselia in hand, so I'm thinking I'm going to KO this Cinccino with Cresselia. Now, it's a little awkward because in order to do that, I need to bench 6 Psychic Pokemon, and it's actually kind of hard for me to have 6 Psychic Pokemon in my hand here. I've got the Cress, I might have like a Ralts, but I think I end up having to put down like some weird Pokemon here in order to get down this Cresselia KO. And this game is like super unorthodox because of this Legacy energy on the Cinccino. This is not the typical Lugia line. Usually we're like doing weird plays to get the Iron Hands, right? We're like hitting the Iron Hands for 220 with Gardevoir EX and like playing Unfair Stamp, and then like next turn you like clean up the Iron Hands with another Monkey and go from there. So I'm kind of just feeling a little bit out of my comfort zone in this game. I don't really know what's going on. I haven't played a game like this before, and so I'm just trying to piece it together. Is Cresselia killing the Cinccino actually good? Should I just be trying to go 2-2-2? I decided pretty quickly that going 2-2-2 is kind of unrealistic. Like, I could kill Lugia V this turn and then like kill Weirdeer, but that would require me to go like Countercatcher Lugia, Countercatcher Weirdeer, and then Boss Lugia V-Star. And like having Boss is not easy. So I decide I have to deal with this Cinccino. I'm going to play for less of a prize trade strategy and more like control of the board. We take out this Cinccino, and what we're thinking here is we take out this Cinccino, and then we're going to take out that Weirdeer, and then we're going to start attacking with Gardevoir EX. We might get got by Drapion once or twice. I mean, probably just once. And then we can start kind of walling my opponent out of the game, preventing him from taking prizes. We can also just like spam one prize Pokemon into the active a lot, right? Like we can attack with Drifloon for like 180. Maybe that'll kill an Archeops, or like Screamtail and Archeops. I'm not entirely sure what I was doing here in the moment, but I just felt like that Cincino needed to go. Our energies, of course, now are a little scuffed, right? We've got one energy all over my board. The good thing is that presumably one of my Pokemon will die, and then I can retreat an energy off another one. So we've kind of got 3 energies in the discard to work with for next turn. That's going to be enough to like attack with Gardex or Drifloon maybe, but my opponent actually makes a huge play here, brings up my Gardevoir EX and one-shots it with the Weird Ear. Now, when I saw this, I was a little taken aback. I definitely wasn't expecting this, and I immediately was wondering if my opponent had like overcommitted energies onto this Weird Ear in order to get this KO. You see there's 8 on there. There's 1 in the discard. That's a lot of double turbo energies. And so I just kind of felt like his attacking options would be fairly limited for the rest of the game. And I'm definitely looking to KO this Weird Ear this turn. We start off with Refinement, getting Psychic Energy into the discard. Now this Weird Ear does have a gift energy on it, and we need to kill it. So any hand disruption this turn is pretty useless. But I also kind of need to draw cards, right? Like I want to set up Monkey Dory with a dark energy. Another thing I was considering in this moment was that my opponent could have like a lot of energies trapped in his hand. And in that case, like maybe I actually don't want to Iono him, because then he could like Archeops the energies back out. And so that's what I'm kind of struggling with here, but I end up just deciding to rip the stamp, and you can see in the recording there that my opponent had like 4 or 5 energies in his hand. So I think that was actually all of his energies. And if I just didn't stamp here, I probably just win the game on the spot. But I go for the unfair stamp. My opponent's on 3 prizes. So what I was thinking in this moment is that his prize map is probably like, maybe just like KO this Drifloon with Lugia, and then kill Gardevoir EX with Drapion. But then I was kind of also wondering, like, does he really have the energies to do that? He's down like basically all of his double turbos. And so this endgame gets a little bit weird here. We do get down the Monkey Dory with the dark. That lets us put some energies onto the Lugia V on the bench. Should make that a little easier to kill. I think from here, my plan is on the next turn, like he's probably going to kill this Drifloon, and then I'm going to like Iono plus Screamtail Archeops, and then my last attack is just going to be like some kind of combination of Monkey Dory pings onto that Lugia V and like an attack from Gardevoir EX, most likely. Now, I think my opponent here, realizing he doesn't play Drapion, and he kind of is unable to win the prize trade without Drapion here, right? I'm going to win in 2 attacks, and he cannot. So he decides to get a little tricky and boss up my Kirlia. I actually thought this was a super heads-up play. I've got all my Psychic energies stuck on the board. I've got one of my Dark energies. I think there's another Dark energy in my discard pile. One of my Turos is in the discard pile. And so if my last Turo is prized, I might actually just have decked out here. And my Turo wasn't prized, but honestly, like, that wasn't by any kind of like calculation. I wasn't really even aware of this deck out play potentially happening. So I guess I kind of got a little lucky here that my Turo wasn't prized. And so he's just going to pass it off to me a couple times. I'm going to draw a couple cards with Kirlia. I think this turn I actually drew into the Turo, but I realized like if I Turo, I couldn't actually knock him out. Because I need to Turo up this Drifloon to like free up my energies. So I just put 30 on the Lugia, and now this turn I can Turo up the Drifloon, double Monkey, and then kill the active with Gardevoir EX. And my opponent realizes here that now that I've Turoed, he just can't really win the game. And so this was definitely a bit of a weird one, but we get the win here in an unorthodox manner, and we're 3-1. In round 5, we run into a Roaring Moon EX deck, not Ancient Box, Roaring Moon EX. And this game is actually really, really interesting. I think I played this one actually pretty horrifically bad, but my opponent kicks it off with a very weak turn 1. They got Ninja Bundle, and they pass it off to me. I go ahead, have a good turn 1. I get down the TM Evolution, and it's back over to my opponent. She's going to try and get off some kind of attack, probably like Roaring Moon, kill a Kirlia would be really good here, or like even just like Roaring Moon, kill Drifloon. It's probably a good idea for them to try to apply some kind of pressure here. They're going to be able to use concealed cards, so that's a bit of an asset for them. You see the Judge in their hand now. That's annoying for me, although I do have 2 Kirlias, so Judge is kind of fake here. I'm sure they were looking for Professor Sawdust off that gear. but now they just got they got a Dark Patch and a Judge. Looks like they're going to get a couple energies in play, and then they're going to go ahead and play the Judge. Now, this matchup is probably not very good for me. I'm not entirely sure, but my opponent's playing a lot of Ancient Booster Capsules, which just like makes it awkward for me to KO things. Of course, I'm weak to Dark, which makes it really easy for them to kill Gardevoir EX. This baby Roaring Moon is actually a really annoying attacker. I kind of have to kill it, but then that ruins my ideas of like trying to go 2-2-2. And also one other thing that's awkward is that my opponent plays Monkey Dory. And I've played against her before. I fully know there's a Monkey Dory in her deck, but I kind of get got by this Monkey Dory later on, and you'll see what happens. But they power up the Roaring Moon, and then they just pass it off to me. I go ahead, I use my refinements, and I'm feeling very out of my comfort zone here. I'm very used to playing like from behind as Gardevoir here, but my opponent's had a slow start, and so I actually have an opportunity here to go on the offensive. You see the Arven in my hand. I can get me Ultra Ball for Gardevoir EX, and I'm just trying to piece together whether or not that's a good idea. Like, how am I supposed to kind of initiate this game? My opponent's not really doing anything. Do I really want to knock something out and give them access to Pheasantipity? Not really. And so what I end up deciding here is that I'm just going to Scream Tail the Greninja for 120. And I also Ultra Ball away Super Rod to do it, which I think is potentially bad. I get down Monkey Dory Dark, and then here's that Scream Tail play. Now, I could have used a combination of, well, I do have more energies in the discard. Yeah, I think I could have like used Monkey Dory and like killed the Greninja, or I could have just used like Drifloon to kill the Iron Bundle here. But my idea is that I'm going to Scream Tail the Ninja for 120, and then on the next turn, I'm going to Monkey Dory ping it, and then also kill the Roaring Moon. The problem with this idea is that my opponent plays Monkey Dory, and so when I try to set up this damage on the board like this, I've got the damage on the Scream Tail. I'm just walking into Monkey Dory, kill my Scream Tail, plus like the Roaring Moon attacking. They even have Artisan in play, so they've got free access to that Monkey Dory, and that's where this game is gonna get very, very awkward for me. I think if I just like killed a Pokemon, it would have been much better, but I forgot about this Monkey Dory. So we'll kind of see how I'm able to come back for this. But here's that Monkey Dory, and there's the Vessel. That's gonna let them Greninja. That's gonna let them use the Monkey Dory. They're gonna get to take a prize card. As far as like the Pokemon I'm going to promote when they knock out the Scream Tail, I think I should probably be promoting Ralts. I just discarded my Super Rod, and so if I sacrifice Drifloon, I'm kind of going to like awkwardly run out of attackers throughout the game, because my Scream Tail's gone, my Drifloon's in the discard, I don't have Rod, I've only got 2 Night Stretchers, so I'm kind of thinking about it here. I'm also pretty upset with myself for just like playing into this Monkey Dory so hard. And then I just sacrifice the Drifloon, which I think is a another misplay. I think that's funny. Like misplays tend to stack on each other. Like I'll like make one misplay and then I'll get flustered and then I'll just like keep misplaying. So if you ever make a misplay, it's like a great idea to just like take a sip of water or like go to the bathroom or I don't know, just take like a 15-second mental reset before making your next decision. But anyways, now I'm kind of making that reset here as I Artisan here, taking my time, gonna shuffle up here a little slower than usual, kind of reassess my situation here. Now, there's a few problems for me. One, that my opponent has a ton of damage on the board, so if I don't take out this Radiant Greninja, they're gonna be able to keep using Monkey Dory, right? Like if I don't kill this Greninja, then like say I like Scream Tail the Monkey Dory, well they can just like Monkey Dory me again, kill the Scream Tail, and they're getting multi-prize plays and just taking too much of a lead. So I can't allow that. But I also like don't want to just like kill the Greninja here. Then I feel like I'm wasting damage. What I really wanted to do was like double Monkey, double Dark. That would let me kill the Greninja, and then I could like Scream Tail the Monkey Dory, take a 2-prize play, remove all the damage from my opponent's field, and that would help me stabilize a lot. But I don't have access to a second Dark Energy. My hand here is actually pretty weak. And so what I end up going for in the end here is to use my Bravery Charm to protect myself from a potential Monkey Dory play. I ping the Greninja so that I can kill it next turn, and then I just take out that Monkey Dory. Now my opponent's hand here, I think they've got maybe about 6 cards. They're going to have access to Pheasantipity here, and they've got 4 prizes remaining. So I think I'm really at risk here of my opponent just like blowing up my Gardevoir EX. whether it's with a Roaring Moon EX or just this like little baby moon. I think either way is completely plausible, especially when they Pokestop into 3 items. But the one thing I kind of have going for me against this Roaring Moon deck is it doesn't gust particularly well. It has to play Sadas. There's a couple Pokemon catchers in her deck and Prime Catcher, but you might have noticed as she was flipping through her deck there that her Prime Catcher is actually prized here. And so in order for her to KO my Gardevoir EX, she's going to need a combination of like multiple Dark Patches, Boss, which is a lot. But I mean, she does have a lot of draw power here. We're going to see the Greninja draw a couple cards, the Fez getting in there. And at the end of the day, she can't find the boss's orders, which means that my Gardevoir EX is going to get to live. And literally this whole turn, I was just convinced that my Gardevoir EX was dying to either Prime Catcher, Pokemon Catcher, boss's orders. And just felt terrible about it. But when my Scream Tail gets knocked out here, I'm actually in a very good position. So my opponent goes down to 3 prizes. I'm able to use Monkey Dory to KO the Greninja, which gets me down to 4. And then I've also got this Pheasantipity and this Petron EX now, which are going to be great targets for me to take out. So I'm going to go ahead and start my turn here. The one thing that is not good for me is I've only got 1 Kirlia, not a lot of draw power. And so in order to make some cool plays, I'm going to need to draw a little bit. Well, we go ahead and Pokestop. Counter Catcher and Unfair Stamp are 2 very welcome additions to my hand. That's going to let me go ahead and Counter Catcher up probably Peturunt. And then here I'm able to like Monkey Dory, kill the Ninja, Gardevoir EX, kill the Peturunt. Oh, looks like I've actually decided to target down the Pheasantipity. I guess that's probably just like a better Pokemon to kill. And I have the damage to do so, so why not? And now at this point, I'm just trying to stabilize my board as much as possible. All I have to do on the last turn of the game is kill this Peturunt, whether that's with a Counter Catcher or a Boss's Orders, or maybe even a Scream Tail attack. I evolve into my second Gardevoir EX. That way I don't like whiff Gardevoir EX on the last turn. I get the Pheasantipity onto the board so I can draw more cards. And then we're just going to take this big play. Radiant Greninja is going to go down, Pheasantipity is going to go down, and we go down to 2. And at this point, we just really stabilize. So I felt like I played that early game really, really bad. And I kind of get a little bit bailed out by my opponent just whiffing that Gardevoir EX KO on that one turn, which just completely changes the prize trade for me. And then we get to wipe out all their draw support and Unfair Stamp them, which really just puts them in a tough spot. And they recognize it here. If they kill Gardevoir EX, they know that I can just like Pheasantipity, draw up my hand. I will say, my opponent still has a little bit of options here, right? If they were to like boss up my Pheasantipity, knock it out with their 290 HP Moon, it might be difficult for me to find the game-winning attack. I would have to find Scream Tail, Counter Catcher, Boss, especially with this Judge, if they were able to Judge into like Prime Catcher. I don't know if they drew the Prime Catcher off the prizes, but they end up not drawing any gusting effects, and so they just have to attack into this Gardevoir EX. And when they do that, I'm going to have access to Pheasantipity. I also get the Pokestop. I could evolve the Ralts into another Kirlia, so I have a decent amount of draw power here. One thing they could do here is pop Iron Bundle, but if they do that, I'm just going to send up my other Gardevoir EX. They go for the Fez here. Now, the Pheasantipity is a little bit awkward because now that they've benched the Fez... Actually, no, the Fez is fine. I was going to say it makes it easier for me to win, but the Peturunt is, of course, on the board, and so that's going to be an easy win. We Counter Catcher up the Peturunt, and we're going to take down this game. So we got a little bit lucky and played a little bad, but that's going to get us to 4-1. And in the last round, we actually hit our friend Noah, and Noah was 5-0 with some insane resistance. So he just gave me the homie scoop, and it was about 10 o'clock, so we kind of wanted to get home. But we ended up closing out 5-1 in this league challenge for second place. Overall, pretty happy with that after losing round 1, and I was pretty happy with my play, other than that last game, of course, and the deck ran well. So that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.